You can now hear Movie Heaven, Movie Hell on Stitcher. Stitcher is radio on demand. Listen anytime, anywhere. Stitcher is an award-winning free app that lets you listen to all your favourite shows, plus discover from 20,000 news, entertainment and sports shows. You can also create your own custom playlists. Stitcher is available on iOS, Android, Nook, iPad and in over 4 million car dashboards. You can stream your favourite podcasts from Stitcher. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. And please leave us a review and rating on Stitcher. Thank you. Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aitken, and
I'm Keith Eyles, and we are both independent filmmakers who enjoy discussing movies and related media. And for this special initial reactions to Star Trek Discovery episode, we're pleased to welcome a guest. We are joined by producer and Star Trek fan Pete Mele. So welcome to the show, Pete.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Now, it's always good fun to have guests on these shows, and as our regular listeners probably know, we have had several episodes that have talked about the Star Trek franchise, which is ever growing. And for once, we do a lot of talking about the past, but for once we're actually in the zeitgeist of the moment, because we're going to talk about something that's just recently launched on Netflix in the last week or so. But before we get into that, for the benefit of our listeners, Pete, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you came to discover Star Trek, no pun intended?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a producer and writer, worked in TV and radio in the US here, have produced some podcasts for some different people, and really, though, I am a Star Trek fan. I couldn't tell you when Star Trek entered my life because it has always been there. I was born in the 80s amid the original series reruns, and the biggest event of my childhood was when Star Trek: The Next Generation came on the air. And that was, my friends and I, that's all we talked about that summer. And my parents sat me down. It was, I think, the one show we watched as a family was Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I've been with Star Trek ever since. I know you, Keith, right? You said in your other podcast you would make Star Trek plays. You were always trying to produce Star Trek plays, right?
Dear, I'm blushing here, although nobody can see. But yes, I grew up in the 80s, so I was very much a fan of the Star Trek movies at the time that went through there. And then, of course, from that, would watch the reruns of the original series. And then, obviously, I sort of followed Star Trek ever since. I'll be honest, initially, I was not a big fan of The Next Generation. It took me a while to get into that, if I'm totally honest.
But, shock horror.
Yeah. Well, because that first season was so good, wasn't it? But,
I must admit, seeing Encounter at Farpoint, that was it was a good kicking off place. It's kind of did tell you were in good hands, and then after that it was kind of. It went from really good to not that great, but then the first series was much better than the second series. I think we can all agree the second series wasn't very good.
But I mean, it's going to be an interesting comparison point, right? If we take Encounter at Farpoint and how that started and the emotions we had there with the first two episodes of Discovery, right? Also like a 2-hour blockbuster event. But maybe later we. Comparing how we felt between the two.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure there'll be a lot of non-Vulcan emotion, present in this podcast. I mean, before we kick off into the actual topic and the conversation, just a few caveats for our listeners out there. At the point that we're recording this right now, there's only been 2 episodes broadcast, which is the Vulcan Hello and Battle at the Binary Stars. By the time this actually goes online, it's quite possible that there may have been another couple of episodes that have been on. So we may make predictions, etc., that we're completely wrong about. We may also, have some spoilers from these first 2 episodes. So if anybody's, not seen it yet, or, getting ready to binge watch it or whatever, then just put us on pause for a couple of hours and come back to listening to us.
Well, if they've been watching it, it'd be like 15 hours and counting.
There you go. But I mean, I've got some feelings. I've got quite a lot to say about this, but I don't want it to be a monologue from me. I really want this to be a conversation. From what I've seen in terms of fan reaction and a few of the reviews that I've read, it has had quite a negative reaction that way. So what do you guys think?
Okay, I just want to say I must have missed the negative reaction, because so far what I've heard has been positive. So what's the negative? Yeah, what's the negative reaction? It's
more the stuff on IMDb.
Oh, I don't want to know the negative.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, just on IMDb, there's been a lot of this is, it's mainly fan reaction, I would say, because it's a lot of this is not the Star Trek we know kind of thing. But I don't take a lot of notice of that stuff. I'm much more interested to know what you guys thought, and I will be chipping in with my thoughts also. So yeah.
Well, Pete, as you're our guest, why don't you go first?
Okay. So I was underwhelmed by the first 5 minutes of the show, right? And honestly, when the opening credit sequence happened, I was watching it with my daughters, and I turned to them. They're young, they're 11 and 8, and I just went, "Oh, I hope this gets better." And I think luckily it did. I think that the show was very good at hinting back to its predecessors and the sort of history of Trek, where it came from, right? I see overtures and like attempts to link into the culture and storylines created by Next Generation, and also the visual cues of the J.J. Abrams universe. Although this takes place before the split, if you will, right?
Yes,
it does. This takes place before.
One of my problems with it, but we'll get there.
Okay, we'll get there. Also, the audio hints back to the original. Audio is a bad word. The theme song opens similarly to the original series theme song.
That's right. You get the Alexandra Courage melody at the beginning and throughout, which many of the film series has done as well. So I actually thought it was quite nice to add that.
I thought that was great.
Beginning, yeah.
I think the opening credit sequence even harkens back to Enterprise, which, as you know, is near and dear to my heart. So I really liked that part of it, how it is very much Star Trek. And so it's hilarious to hear people say this is not the Star Trek we know and love. But I'm just going to ignore them as internet, malcontents. So I like that. I think that it set itself up to be in a great place. But one thing that it didn't have, which going back, I think that Encounter at Farpoint had, was that Encounter at Farpoint grabbed me right away and pulled me in. And I was fully invested in the world and the relationships. These 2 episodes did not do that to me. It was more like they made me interested, and maybe I'll walk over and spend some time, but I wasn't sucked in right away. And so I'm cautiously optimistic because I think there are still 13 episodes to come out. And I don't know that the series will keep me as happy as Enterprise did. Which I know is a troubling statement for many people. But I'm just going to speak my truth, okay? I'm not going to deny anything. Like, Enterprise got me from episode 1. The Next Generation had me from episode 1, but also, I was a kid. I think I was 7 when it came out, but I was fully invested. So those are my feelings. Simon, what do you think?
Well, I wasn't going to watch this, to tell the truth. I was going to sort of wait for a while, just because, life and so many things going on, and, podcasts and doing films and all that kind of stuff. So I was going to...
It's just my fault.
Yes, it's your fault. Because, I had... it's so weird to say, but the last couple of days, they've been like really long days. So I've been working all day and then going to like gigs in the evening. And so what I've been having to do is grabbing like naps here and there to sort of get me through the day. And of course, yesterday I sort of watched both episodes yesterday instead of a nap. So I was kind of like, well, let's see how this go and see if I stay awake. And I think that's its first true test, was that I stayed awake through all of it. I didn't nod off for it at all. I thought I agree with you, Pete, with the first 5 minutes. It was kind of like they just threw you in there, especially point of view of the Klingons. And, you're just kind of like, I think it's that thing where there's a sort of trying to get you used to what the Klingons look like now. And it's certainly a design choice that they've fully embraced. I don't think the Klingons have looked so fancy in all my life, and it's kind of setting up the politics in there and stuff, and it's quite curious to see how that's going to turn out. But again, it's that weird thing where if it had been the Kelvin timeline, I think I would have been a lot more happier than if it being connected to classic Trek, just because how then do they go from that to what we know being in the original Trek series and the films and Next Generation and stuff, that it's gone like a completely different direction.
Well, it still might go Kelvin, right? Because this happens a couple of years before the 2009 Star Trek movie. Yeah.
But then again, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking about what people must have thought when going from the original series to seeing the motion picture and the massive change they did to the Klingons then.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There is that. That's very key.
Yeah. But I just want to say I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the characters. There's some interesting dynamics. The fact that the main character Michael Burnham, which is a funny name for a girl. I hope we find out why she's called Michael.
I thought it was Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Her name was Michael as well.
Oh, really? Okay. It was that whole sort of the setup in the 2 episodes when they get to the binary star system and what happens, and and also the fact that she has now been spoiler, she's in prison.
Yeah.
She was like lieutenant. It would be commander, because she kept calling her number 1.
Yeah, so, it was commander.
Which was a nice nod back. I did like that.
Yeah. And I also liked the Doug Jones character. I thought he was he was a very good introduction, and just because he was somebody who you could tell he would do the right thing no matter what. Though it does, the story does kind of, it's one of those stories where it's like, oh damn it, if they only just did what she wanted to do, they wouldn't be in this problems. But then they got to do it because otherwise the rest of Star Trek and the relationship with the Klingons will never happen.
Yeah. No, I agree. I actually, I had to watch this. I was absolutely itching to watch it because I just was happy that we get more Star Trek, back after, 12 years since Enterprise finished. And okay, yes, we've had, 3 movies in that time. But, it's nice to get it back on a platform where you get like a weekly dosage. So,
Keith, tell the audience when you watched this.
Oh God, I'm so sad. I literally watched it. I think in the US it aired on the Sunday, the what would that have been, the 24th? Am I right, Pete?
Yeah. It aired
because it's on CBS All Access over there.
Well, actually, so in the US, the first episode actually aired on broadcast TV.
Right. Okay.
At 8:30, and then the second episode you could catch immediately following online.
Right. Well, we get it on Netflix for the rest of the world.
Bastards, yeah.
It's 24 hours later. So literally as soon as it came up, even though I had work the next day and, should have really been getting some rest and doing some prep for that, I couldn't help myself. I watched both episodes, back to back, and had to do it. And, a number of things sort of struck me. I mean, first of all, back to the sort of whole Enterprise chat. I remember when Enterprise came out, that also got a lot of backlash from people because they sort of said, they got this wrong and they didn't do this and and all this sort of thing. And I had a lot of fondness for Enterprise, and I was a big fan of Enterprise, and I sort of really sort of cut it some slack, and I think definitely by the time they got to like the 4th season, which sadly was the last season of that, when Rick Berman and Brannon Braga brought Manny Coto on as the showrunner, who was clearly a massive Star Trek fan of the original series, and he started sort of bringing in all these things to sort of tie it into the original series and explain why the Klingons look different, and set up what would happen with Data and reference the eugenics wars, and he did all these really clever things. And one of the things I think is that, if you like, a problem with Star Trek in general is what they always did with Next Gen and the following series was they always used to sort of go forward. It was always about, I heard George Takei interviewed once, and he said Gene Roddenberry always wanted to move forward with everything. And one of the things they've sort of become obsessed with now is going back. They've obviously done it with the movies, and they did it with Enterprise, and now they're doing it with this. And obviously that of course comes with its problems. I really enjoyed this, but my issue was I could totally buy this as a sequel to Enterprise, and if you like, a sequel to what happened with the Kelvin events in 2009 film. So I could see it as a sequel to Enterprise in the Kelvin timeline, okay? But I have a hard job buying that 2 years before this, the events of the Cage were supposed to have happened, and then 10 years after this, the events of the original series is supposed to happen. It just doesn't seem to make sense, not just from a visual and design perspective with, uniforms and ships and sets and props and phasers and all that, but also just, I could buy that at the moment Captain Pike is teaching at the academy, which Kirk and McCoy, etc., are at, and that the Enterprise hasn't been launched yet. Not for another couple of years, But to think that the Enterprise is actually out there somewhere, commanded by Pike with Spock on it, doesn't seem to fit with what this show shows, in my opinion. And maybe I'm just being too geeky about it, but you know, the design of this, everything about it matches what they've done in the, you know, what the creative team have done in the Kelvin, the J.J. Abrams movies, but doesn't seem to fit with the other. And my point about that is the creative team, some of which are the same people that worked on the Star Trek reboot movie, they went to great lengths to set up that other timeline, not to piss the hardcore fans off with the continuity, and also to give them storytelling freedom. Whereas I feel that setting this in the Prime one is actually going to restrict them more than anything. So I don't know. Am I just being sad, or do you guys concur with that?
I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree so the small point that obviously, right, I have to agree with is, yes, the visuals of this don't match the visuals of the original series. I'm sure that there are never going to be computer discs in Star Trek Discovery, even though there were in the original series. And that's just part of, you know, that's part of the illusion of storytelling, I guess, that we just have to get on board with. That we know now that we're not going to need computer discs in the future, so we don't have to write them in, because that's silly. But the one thing that I think is a key point there that you haven't ascribed to is that the Klingon hierarchy or cultural structure, as displayed here in Discovery, I think perfectly matches what the timeline and layout should be, considering the events that happened in Enterprise and considering what we know of the original series. I think that if you look at the Klingon Empire at the end of Enterprise, it's sort of shattered and rocked by this genetic mutation and augmentation crisis that happens, which is what Enterprise uses to explain the smooth-faced Klingons from the original series. But they do make it clear that in Enterprise that not all Klingons are going to suffer this mutation. That it will make them, you know, the more aggressive, the people with this mutation. That's not to say that other Klingons aren't warrior. Am I going too nerdy here? I don't know, but I'm just going to keep going.
Not at all. This is great.
Okay.
Keep going.
So I think that what Discovery is trying to show us is that there is this section of Klingons in Klingon society who are trying to get back to what it means to be Klingon, which makes sense if you think about the fact that they've just had this gene augmentation crisis within them that certain members of the Klingon Empire brought about. And so now here we have this leader who's trying to say, let's go back to what it truly means to be Klingon. Let's be pure and truly Klingon. And so it does make sense to me then that there is this one fraction of the Klingon Empire that we will get to interact with in Discovery that is separate from the Klingon Empire that was presented to us in the original series, which, if we take the Enterprise storyline, means that those are the smooth-faced Klingons that were genetic augments. It's, sort of, I guess, retcons why Klingons from the original series were always backstabbing and bad and not particularly focused on honor, which is sort of next generation Klingons, right?
Mm.
Yeah, no, I see that. It makes a nice bridge between those. The only thing with the Klingons' design, and again, I'm being nerdy, and of course I understand why these things change, but when they had in the second episode, when they had the holograms from the other 24 houses of Klingons appear, I wish that they'd had a few sort of hairy long-haired, bearded Klingons within that, like we've come used to in the Star Trek movies and the Next Generation, etc. Because the look of the Klingons in this almost, to me, felt like the look of the Klingons in Star Trek Into Darkness. Again, the Kelvin timeline look, and I'm happy with the fact that there are Klingons we haven't seen, and there's different houses and whatever, but as just a little sort of a tip of the hat to the fans, I really wish that they'd sort of stuck a hairy Klingon in there, because you think about it, all through all of the series we've had and the movies and even the original series, they were portrayed as having beards and stuff, and now they've kind of gone to this sort of bald type Klingon design. And I don't know, I just kind of found that a bit because even Enterprise, which pilot episode starts, Broken Bow starts with, the Enterprise's first mission being to return a Klingon back to its home world. And again, they were the Klingons that we'd seen, the Worf type Klingon that we'd seen from the movies and the other series. So I was a sort of bit puzzled. As on one hand, I understand why they've changed the design. I kind of think they could have compromised slightly and maybe stuck a couple in there in the background for good measure. I don't know. Am I being sad?
No, actually, I think that would have been really smart to do. I do agree with you, right? Like, it's easier to say like, oh, well, just like people have different faces and different bone structures, Klingons don't all need to look the same with, the same sort of ridge pattern and hair. And so it would have made sense that, you have one house that looks like a redesign, an original redesign Klingon. But then I also think like, well, it's in the reality of it, the people doing the makeup felt like they had to put their own spin on it. And they, wanted to give Klingons a new look just for this, which I don't know if I agree with, but I'm willing to accept as part of the visuals, right? Like the way that there aren't push buttons and there are LCD display screens.
Yeah. But Enterprise at least tried. I mean, I'll give Enterprise got a lot of stick, but I think design-wise, Enterprise, again, considering it was made 35 years after the original series, and technology in our own world had moved on. It was obviously supposed to be set 100 years before. That they did a good job at sort of straddling that line, which it seems to me with this new show, which I do enjoy. So I'm not slagging it completely, but what I'm saying is they seem to have completely ignored that now and gone another way and not explained it in the way that the newer movies have done. But
well, I'm going to say this. I think a lot of the people involved in this this TV series is not beholden to Gene Roddenberry like they were up to Enterprise, because you always had the teams who worked with or under Gene Roddenberry, and they were always sort of wanting to beholden to his vision. Now with CBS and the filmmakers on this one, they were like, well, we've got Gene Roddenberry in name, and we've got Star Trek, and we know Star Trek is, people in ships, and they know the kind of design of ships, and we've got the logo, and we can change up the spacesuits and the crew suits and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to the life forms, well, we can just go crazy. I mean, we just can do whatever we want, and that's kind of, I think, what you're going to see a lot of in this new series. I don't think when we see the Andorians, because they've been mentioned by name, I think they're going to look a lot different to how they looked in the original series and in Enterprise.
You see, which I have to say that makes me slightly sad, because the thing is, I've got anything that's external, i.e., narrative, photography, editing, music, all of that stuff, and of where they go with stories, I really don't mind. But the internal stuff, the continuity, the timeline, the chronology, the design, the technology, and whatever, I always have a bit more of a a problem with, and this is again about defending Enterprise. I think Enterprise got a hell of a load of shit for this, and Rick Berman and Brannon Braga got really, hauled over the coals by fans about this. Yeah, I think they did a really good job at preserving those things. So it just makes me think, well, what are those fans going to say when they see this? Because this looks, very J.J. Abrams to me, and understandably,
Or how about the fact that all of the communications now seem to be via hologram, including holograms that interact with the surroundings? That was one of the things that I didn't enjoy. Did you catch that Sarek sits on the table? I
did, yes.
And I went, hang on. Hey.
Well, actually, while we're on the subject of Sarek, let's just talk about that real quick. So Spock then in the infamous Star Trek V, that line he says about how I do not often discuss the past, right? Well, no shit, because not only didn't he mention that he had a half Vulcan brother, but he also failed to mention that he also had an adoptive human sister as well. And they've got to have grown up at the same time because they're approximately the same age, right, at this point. So, again, even Vulcan looked like the J.J. Abrams, those pods where they do the, which was inspired by Star Trek 4, where they do the, the math questions and training and everything. But it felt like that. But again, it's like, what's your thoughts on? I like this character, Michael Burnham. I think she does a great job of playing her. But what's your thoughts on suddenly Sarek having a human adopted daughter, where at the same time that Spock's out there serving with Captain Pike or whatever? What are your thoughts on that, folks?
Well, they're just rewriting everything. I mean, the thing is, when I'm watching this, I don't think that Pike and Spock are out there. I mean, it's solely focusing on on this character and this crew. So, it works the story. They needed an Obi-Wan Kenobi character, and they've got it in Sarek.
Yeah,
it does. It does also really Sarek and Spock have all these dad issues, right? Like daddy-son issues. And it really throws it into another light when you're like, yeah, he had issues with his dad. He's half human, never enough for his dad, but his dad adopts a full human and obviously loves her and expresses emotions for her with her, like instantly. Yeah. It sets her up on a Starfleet ship when he doesn't want his own son to go into Starfleet. I don't know.
And spoilers, gives her part of his chakra.
Katra.
Oh, Katra, sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which, if you go back to Next Generation, Spock says, I never had the pleasure, I never mind melded with my father. So he never had that connection. And then he mind melds with Picard to get part of his father's Katra.
So Sarek was just going around leaving that everywhere, wasn't he? There's going to be loads of people popping out the woodwork going, oh, I speak to Sarek too.
Yeah, he was putting it about a bit, wasn't he, clearly? I'll tell you what, on the subject of Sarek as well, and again, this is just one of my sort of nerdy, geeky things, but as an actor, I would always love to have been in Star Trek, right? But as a filmmaker, there's always things I think, if I was doing it, I'd have done it this way. And I know sort of 8 years have passed or whatever, and this is supposed to be a couple of years beforehand as well. But I think it would have been really cool if they'd got Ben Cross to put on the wig and ears again and come back as Sarek. Again, that would link it to the Kelvin timeline. But I just think that would have been a nice touch, rather than having a third actor portraying Sarek. Although James Frain's doing a great job so far, so I'm certainly not knocking him. It's just, again, a little thing I would have liked as a wink would have been to get Ben Cross in there with those ears on again,
I absolutely agree.
So what do you guys think about the Star Wars-fication of Star Trek? because it's clearly Star Wars is now having a big effect on it. I mean, just the fact that I refer to Sarek as being Obi-Wan Kenobi in this series, you can see they're clearly taking beats from Star Wars, where originally they were chalk and cheese.
Well, I would say that actually one of the things that I loved about Discovery was that I feel like it is very Roddenberry in that it tried, the Michelle. Sorry, no. Oh crap! I didn't bother to learn the captain's name because she's already dead. But
Michelle Yeoh's character.
Michelle Yeoh's character, Georgie, I think.
Yeah.
Or
I think
Gregory.
it was Captain Giorgio or something
Giorgio,
like that.
yeah.
Something like that.
She does something that you're never going to see in Star Wars, which is let's make peace, right? Let's find the middle ground. The Admiral comes out and says, let's find the middle ground. Star Wars has always been for me just a simple good against bad fight without that sort of the narrative of let's both become better and let's both rise above this fight.
Yeah. But it's interesting that in this series so far, they've shown that point of view has ended in ruin, because the both characters who have that point of view are both killed off, and the one character who says no, let's attack them, okay, she's been punished within the Federation, but she's going to live on to fight another day.
I guess I have great hopes that the allegory that this season is going to refer to, and sort of like the original series, is the sort of the current issue in the world, right, of hate versus inclusiveness, and how do we live in a world where there are people who are going to spread hate and isolationism. How do we make this world a better place? And so that is like the under theme that I picked up from the 2 episodes that I find really interesting. And I saw in these episodes what I feel like is the right message, which might be my own personal hangups there. But and so I truly hope that they develop that more as the story goes on. That the way to combat isolationism and hate is not with force and with anger, but with acceptance. And yes, it does mean that you lose fights, you get killed. But if more of you pick up the torch and keep going, then everyone is better off in the end.
Yes, but I mean, this is the problem that Star Trek Discovery has as a series, is that you ultimately know where the destination is, the final point, because we know that there's a Cold War between the Federation and the Klingons. There's the neutral zone, and then there's and then we know that the peace comes because the fact that the Klingons need help from their power moon for being destroyed. And so that I guess the goal of Discovery is setting up the neutral zone.
Yeah, I mean, this is back to my point about the fact that they always seem to sort of go back to this era rather than moving forward, like they obviously did with Next Gen and etc. They've sort of now sort of stuck on going back to the sort of Kirk Spock era, if you like. And I mean, one of the things I always used to sort of defend Enterprise over when people sort of didn't like it was I said, what I felt is it kept to the spirit of Star Trek. It was about exploration. It was about let's get out there and find, new life and new civilizations and all that sort of thing. And hopefully this show at the moment, it seems to be pushing against the Prime Directive, if you like, but hopefully, as it evolves, which I'm sure it will, that'll change. But what's interesting about the whole sort of Star Wars thing is I feel like Star Trek and Star Wars have always kind of, even though they're very different, they've always kind of fed off of one another to a certain extent. And just the point you made, Pete, about the fact that the primary means of communication in this, even though it's obviously set beforehand, where you always used to be view screens, now it's holograms, which, let's be honest, that's a very Star Wars universe means of communication. So that is interesting. I have to admit, but one of the other things, one of the other things that's very apparent from these two first episodes, which interestingly enough, it's kind of weird, rather than having a sort of feature length episode like most of the shows apart from the original series have had. These have been individual episodes, but of course, essentially it's like part one and part two, because it sort of followed directly on from one another. But whereas all those other pilots always set up the entire crew, the ship, the series, it's very interesting that it's thus far we've not met the titular ship, and we've only been introduced to maybe 2 or 3 of the regular characters that are going to be on this. So, we've still got a hell of a lot more to come. I mean, we haven't even seen Discovery yet, have we?
No, but this is the whole thing about this series. This is the first time we're getting a Star Trek series where every episode leads into the next one. So it's not episodic. It's not like you can drop into this, series at any point. You have to watch it from beginning to end. At the end of it, it's going to be like a 15-hour movie.
Yeah. Which is great. I love that idea. I mean, Star Trek Enterprise kind of experimented with this in the 3rd season, didn't they? With that whole Xindi arc and whatever. But obviously, that's kind of where TV is in general now, particularly on a platform like Netflix or whatever. It's less episodic, like Star Trek has always been, and much more of a sort of serialized drama, really, isn't it? But But apparently, I know they hinted at this with in Star Trek Beyond, with revealing that Sulu was in a same-sex relationship and whatever. But I've read that we're supposed to be having a sort of first openly gay character as well in this, but I'm not aware that we've actually met that person yet. Have we, in these first 2 episodes?
No, no.
Yeah.
No. I mean, at the end of the day, there's so much going on. There wasn't time to get to know the characters properly outside of our main character.
Well, we've met our first officer, who's going to be our lead, haven't we? And we've met, Doug Jones's alien character. Is it Saru, or I don't know. I can't remember how you pronounce it. But and they seem to have a very interesting relationship. They've definitely got that sort of. Different sides of the same coin type thing going on there with Michelle Yeoh was kind of providing that balance. It was almost, for a minute, I thought that was going to be the triad of Kirk, Spock and McCoy relationship. I thought it was going to be Michelle Yeoh, Berman and Saru, but obviously it's not going to go that way, as we found out.
It's amazing that they did it so well, right? Like, these 3 had such great play and such an interesting relationship. Those 3 minutes where they're all on the bridge together and talking, I loved. And then you find out, and I was so hoping that would be more of the series, and it is most definitely not going to be more of the series.
Yeah. I know it was a bit of a. Well, it was good. What this did do is, whereas in many respects it felt very familiar. I mean, we had bridge scenes and space battles, and visually it looked very much like what we've come used to with the films and the sort of more latter series and whatever. But one thing it definitely did in terms of the narrative and the story was do things that were unfamiliar, and definitely there are 1 or 2 things that happened in those first episodes very quickly which were not what you were expecting as a viewer, and you know, I applaud them for that, absolutely, you know.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought also was quite interesting was, and again, I've sort of done a bit of research to try and find out a bit more about this, but what are your thoughts on the fact that Brian Fuller actually left the series?
I tried not to read too much going in because I was worried, and I just wanted to be able to enjoy I wanted to be able to enjoy what was presented to me without having to go into a lot of backstory. And so I have tried to read some articles about it now that I've watched the 2 episodes. And what I gather is that, like, he had a different vision and he had disagreements. I don't know what he was advocating for that didn't get put on the screen. And maybe it hasn't shown up yet. But I think that whatever it was might have been the right decision, because the product that we have is good. The first 2 episodes, I'm willing to say, are good. And so I don't feel like it was a disaster.
Yeah. I mean, bits I've read, you know, because I mean, obviously he's responsible essentially, particularly in these first 2 episodes, for the basic storyline of what we've seen. You know, that very much came from him, you know, with some rewriting from others. But my understanding of it is one of his things was about the sort of more design aspects of the show, and I think from what I heard that he wanted to try and make it tie in a bit better, if you like, with the original series. You know, these things that I have problems with, if you like, and you know, ultimately there was some sort of creative differences, and it's a shame because obviously early in his career he was involved with Voyager. You know, he was one of the writers on Voyager, and I don't know whether you guys are fans or have watched the Hannibal series that he was the showrunner and executive producer on. But you know, I really like this guy's work. You know, he does push boundaries quite a bit. So I think it's a bit of a shame that that he's not staying on to shape Star Trek. But he's got us this far, I guess.
Yeah, wasn't there problems with Nicholas Meyer as well? Wasn't he not doing it? And yeah.
He's down as consulting producer, isn't he, on that? But whatever that means.
There's I have to say, with the opening credits, there was a lot of producer credits.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this credit sequence could be a lot shorter if we got rid of all the producers. You know? Yeah. I have to say, talking about the opening, the credit sequence, I'm not a fan of it, to tell the truth. I mean, if anything, I'm quite glad on Netflix there's a skip intro button there now, because it's like,
oh really?
Yeah,
okay.
it's not the music. I just think this whole sort of because they're sort of showing the designs and stuff like
blueprints
that.
And stuff. Yeah.
It's just, it was kind of like, I don't know. It's just sort of, maybe because I was a bit tired, but I was thinking, God, this is just a bit too much.
Well, I mean, credit sequences have always been a Star Trek thing in a time now where, you know, because of time restrictions and stuff, where, you know, very few shows get a proper credit sequence anymore. They're usually just a sort of, you know, logo and then it's credits over the action, as it were. So, yeah, I think it's quite nice that we get a theme and credits, and they did, as you said, Pete. They kind of reminded me in a little way of the sort of Enterprise credits where they had the sort of man's exploration through the years, right the way up to First Contact, wasn't it?
It's the history of exploration.
The history of exploration, absolutely. But I mean. I didn't have a problem with that, I have to say. And I liked the use of the theme music.
And just to go to the other end, I loved it. I loved the probably because they are reminiscent to me of of Enterprise. They are a departure from your other Star Trek credit sequences, which have always been these animated or computer generated, scenic shots, for lack of a better word, of spaceships going through nebulas and planets circling suns. And
especially the Voyager credits were very much like that, weren't they?
Yeah, actually, the Voyager credits I saw, somebody gave me a copy of the original computer graphics before, like 6 months before the series went to air. So those were the first things I saw of Voyager, and I just remember loving them. But now I think it's great that we have this other way to present Star Trek, and hopefully, I'm being selfish here, but hopefully people will get used to these credits for Discovery and then stop hating Enterprise so much.
Yes, yeah. No, I know I know where you're going with that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things, again, this was one of the things. The look of this, to me, so feels like the Kelvin universe. I mean, even the phasers, I could totally buy that these were a precursor to the flippy phasers that we get in the reboot films. But I guess one of the I don't know whether one of the reasons they've done that is to try and stop story restrictions in case they make more movies or whatever, and have them sort of concurrently in the same time space. But I don't know. That's a niggle of mine. If you like, my head canon wants to believe that this is in the Kelvin timeline, and I'm cool with it. But every time my head canon says it's in the prime timeline, I seem to find issue. And you're right. I just need to let it go, don't I?
You need to let that one go, because it still might turn out to be in the Kelvin timeline. You don't know.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. And the other thing is, as well, is apparently the budget of this is like $8 million an episode, and I have to say the visual effects on this are absolutely top notch. I mean, they're as good as anything we've seen in the movies. You know what I mean? Yeah. I really, really did think that the space battle, which it's inevitable, they have to have space battles in these things now because it has to be more Star Wars. There you go. But I thought all of that stuff looked absolutely incredible. I was most impressed. But one of the things I did like with the sound effects was I liked the fact that on the bridge they did have some of the original series sound effects, and that did sort of make me smile and make my heart jump slightly. What did you guys think about that sort of stuff?
Oh no, as the sound design and the visual effects and so everything was sort of top notch. I mean, it's kind of like what you expect now from television. I mean, the thing that TV used to be film's poorer cousin it's not the case anymore.
Oh no way! They blurred totally. Yeah.
But that's just because now there's a lot more money, being made from TV. I mean, the fact it's on Netflix, the fact that CBS have launched their own streaming service with this show, there had to be big and bold. Otherwise, nobody's going to pay for this another subscription service.
Actually, what I heard was that CBS was profitable on Discovery before any of these episodes aired, which means that they made their budget. They made all of that money by licensing to Netflix in all the different countries.
Wow.
So any money they make from All Access is just extra on top.
Wow. Okay.
They literally don't care, is what I read, is that, they were good already.
Wow.
So that might be part of, they're committed to spending money because they got all that money up front.
Yeah.
And all it can do is make more money for them. It's not a gamble at this point.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So it's doing well because, as I said, I had no idea before we started recording this, you know what your guys' reactions was going to be. That's why I was just like, let's get straight into the episode. But you know, there are. I'm not one for reading reviews and stuff, but you know, I looked on, as I said, IMDb, and you know, some of the things are just like people put awful, worst show on television, worst Star Trek pilot ever, you know, and stuff like that. I mean, it's getting 1 stars and real backlash on this. So and that's nearly every review that's up at the moment is negative rather than positive. So I'm quite pleased to hear that you guys feel positively about it, because I'm optimistic about it. I think to myself, we've still got, you know, 12 more episodes to go. That's another 10 hours of television there to watch, and this could really evolve and go somewhere. You know, so I'm positive about it, but there's, you know, my only thing is geeky stuff about the fitting into the timeline, which I'm just being a saddo, and I need to, you know, go and take off my anorak and get a bloody life, basically. But start dating girls again or something. You know what I mean? It's just like, what am I doing? But
Keith, can I just say something about negative reviews, especially on IMDb? As a filmmaker who has films up on IMDb that's been reviewed, you tend to find that people who have a negative view are more likely to write on there than those who have a positive view.
Yeah, did any of us review it on IMDb? I didn't.
No, I didn't.
No, we're doing that right now. There you go. Now? But it's
but I mean, it takes time to write a review, especially if it's something that's a bit more eloquent than this was a piece of shit, which a lot of I've had that review many times, or don't watch, or it's, you know, it's easy to sort of write something negative than it is to sort of praise. So I'm always happy to see when there's like a praising review of any of my work, because because the shit reviews outweigh it. So you know, you'll see that on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. You know, but the thing is, people are going to watch it, even if they don't. I tell you what, even if they don't like it, they're probably going to watch it more.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on this whole sort of with the platform? I mean, obviously, when Marvel released stuff on Netflix, you get the entire series, and you can literally, which I have done, you know, spend an entire day watching every single episode in one go. But obviously, they've chosen to do this in a episode each week. What are your thoughts on that? Do you like that? Is it nice to have something to look forward to?
I think it's interesting from an academic point of view. You know, like I've been interested in it, in the idea of like we're at the forefront of new media, right? And how does the internet affect television, and what does television on the internet look like? So I'm super interested in how this is going to work, just in terms of this is a first, right? We've got a brand new show. 1 episode aired on network television. All of the others are just going to be online, and the TV channel that is producing them has already sold the rights overseas. So I think it's interesting. I think I want to see how it goes. I mean, Hulu has done and is doing this on their stuff. Like The Handmaid's Tale was not released in bulk; it was released one at a time.
And that's won multiple Emmys as well, hasn't it?
Yeah. Some people are doing it, and like Netflix has a foot in it, right? Like they have the Chelsea Handler show, which is live, right? Or not live, but released weekly. I think it's interesting. It doesn't make a difference to me in terms of how I'm consuming it. I think that there are going to be weeks when I watch it right when I can, and then there are going to be weeks when I'm not able to, and I'll maybe watch 2 the next week. But I'm flexible, and I don't think I have strong opinions.
Yeah. What about you, Simon?
it's one of these things where they're sort of playing to both camps. So they're playing to the old school camp of, you know, watching it weekly, and then, you know, once it's all up there, you can get, you know, you can wait and you can you know, binge watch it. But it's just, the thing is, it does feel like that model is kind of it's just sort of kind of outdated, especially for when it's a show that, you know, each episode leads into another, and sometimes having that week gap, you then have to try and remember what happened, or so, you know, it's. I think with this series, I would have preferred it if they had released the whole lot. If they'd done like a Stranger Things where you could have binge watched it, because I think because having to, I mean, I watched when me and my girlfriend decided to watch Stranger Things. You know, we thought, well, we'll watch one episode, and then like 7 episodes later, we're like, oh, we have to go to bed now. You know, we'll finish this tomorrow, and it has that feel. I mean, having the 2 episodes together back to back like that, because you wanted to find out what was going to happen, and now you're sort of going, well, now I've got to wait a week, and, you know, probably for myself, I'm going to have to wait 2 weeks because I'm going to be on holiday, so. You know, and it's kind of like, it does have that kind of, I want to watch it now.
Yeah.
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 You have to wait a week to meet the right captain, right?
Yeah.
You
exactly.
have to wait a week to meet the actual discovery.
Yeah. Jason Isaacs, I believe. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. We've not even seen him yet. Yeah. We've not even seen the discovery yet. So yeah, I'm looking forward. I mean, I'll be honest, for me, I do a hell of a lot of binge watching. But what I find is, if I binge watch something, I don't remember it in the same way as I do if I watch one episode every week or a couple of episodes every week. You know, it's really weird. I don't know why that is. I don't know whether it's just something with my brain or what. But my recollection and my recall of something, if I watch it weekly, is way better than if I do an entire binge watch and then try and like, oh yeah, what happened? You know, go to the next season or whatever and try and remember back to what happened. It's really odd. It's an odd phenomenon. It's you know.
I think in this age where we know it's all been filmed, it's all been completed, it would be nice to have the choice, because if you wanted to watch it weekly, you could watch it. You could watch it weekly, or, you know, if you just wanted to binge on it, there it all is. Actually,
I think they're filming the last couple of episodes right now.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Do you guys get After Trek?
Yes.
Oh, where's that?
It's on Netflix. Annoyingly, it goes straight into, if you're watching on Netflix, it pops up, and if you don't press a button, or, you know,
it autoplays.
Does it? That never happened with me.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe they've just maybe it's just too early. Maybe it's just been added, but I know it's there. But I tend not to watch those kind of shows. I mean, because it's just I don't know. It's I'm not a fan of that kind of programming. We have a lot of it over in the UK. It's like shows like Strictly Come Dancing, all our sort of reality TV shows have the sort of sister show, you know. And for some of them, like Strictly, they're on during the week. They're like 30-minute episodes during the week between the main episodes of the show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, I can't believe that on a Star Trek podcast, we Strictly Come Dancing has been mentioned. What the hell?
It's the only example. I mean...
Infinite diversity and infinite combinations, gentlemen.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I mean, of course, you've got like the Talking Dead. You've got
Talking Bad. Talking Bad. Isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I was it Lost that originally started that kind of concept where they would talk about the show afterwards?
Well, actually, interestingly, I've got kind of a saddo answer to that, because one of the things I was going to say about the binge watching versus weekly is I was going to say, like 15 years ago, when 24 was on, we had it on the BBC here initially, And every single week, it would be on a Sunday night, I'd tune in, I'd switch off my mobile phone. Nobody dared ring me because I was, and at the end of every episode, when that clock counter went up, I just could not wait to the next episode and knew I had a whole week to wait. And I kind of liked that in some respects. But immediately after that show, there was a show called Pure 24, which was exactly that. It was hosted by a lovely woman. I'm trying to think of her name. Tasmin's. I can't remember her full name, but it would be a show that would chat about 24 and sometimes have guests on or recorded interviews for behind the scenes, and they would speculate what was going to happen next week, and they'd discuss the episode, which is exactly what they do in things like Talking Dead and Talking Bad and all of those sorts of shows. So I don't know whether it originated here with that or whether that's just coincidence. But I remember I used to tune into that show where it used to come on straight after the episode of 24, and I used to love it.
Tamsin Sylvester.
I wonder what happened to Tamsin Sylvester. There you go. Yeah, isn't Google a wonderful thing?
I love it.
Yes. Yeah. No, and that was exactly that sort of format. Did they have one for Dexter as well, or am I imagining that?
Well, Dexter would have been on, maybe in the BBC, but in the US it was on a prime cable, and I don't think they did.
Yeah, I love Dexter. That's another show I was a big fan of, Dexter, but there you go. But sorry, back to Star Trek then. Sorry, one question I've got for you guys. So the first episode, the Vulcan Hello, right? And obviously, Berman talks to Savick about how, they dealt with the first contact with Klingons back in the... And, the Vulcans... The solution was that the Vulcans fired on them, right? But I don't know, was that a logical thing to do? I did kind of... my head canon was kind of thinking, is that... Do I like that? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I mean, it wasn't that wasn't the first contact scenario. What happened was that they had met them and their ship was destroyed. So the logical thing is, if you're going up against a warring race, that every time you see them, it's better to shoot first than to shoot last.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, it was sound logic. It was also... It did strike me as very Vulcan in that, here we have a problem. What do? We get rid of it.
Right.
It's
logical
around.
when you look at it that way. Yeah. No, good point. Yeah.
Also, come on, remember your Enterprise, right? The Vulcans were in a peace treaty with the Andorians, and yet still we're spying on them. And,
yes.
We're still overly militaristic.
This is very true. In fact, this series, I think, it's fair to say, owes Enterprise an incredible amount, right? Because again, because Enterprise, let's be honest, that is the child that's not liked out of the Star Trek TV family. I mean, everybody always blames it as being the death of Star Trek, which really winds me up when people say that. But Rick Berman and Brannon Braga, have had a lot of flack about Enterprise. Yet I think Enterprise did a lot of things really well. And as I said, it makes me laugh that in the Kelvin timeline, Enterprise is actually the only one that officially exists now, which is kind of a take that haters.
Yeah. And didn't the ship in this look a lot like the ship from Enterprise?
It did.
Shenzhou, was it the Shenzhou?
It
did look like. Well, put it this way, I can totally buy that it's a successor of the NX-01 ship from 105 years earlier or whatever. So yeah, it makes sense.
Didn't they reference in this that the Shinzo is an older model ship?
That's right. Yes.
In the second episode, she says it's an old ship.
It's an old ship.
I was like, God, it looks fucking newer than Voyager. But there you go.
I don't know. Voyager was really... I like that ship. That's one of my favorite ships.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I've got fondness for Voyager as well. That's another show that gets a lot of flack. But
gets a lot of...
now I've got fondness for Voyager as well. But, that's a whole nother podcast.
Can we go back to this point? Was it,
Yes.
a lot of people are being negative about it and they're saying it's not their Star Trek. But I can't stop myself from being so happy that now I get 15 new episodes of Star Trek. I am going to have these opportunities to watch new Star Trek this year, which is something that I haven't been able to do for a long time. It's the first time that I'm going to be able to sit my child down next to me and have them watch with me new Star Trek, which is what my parents did with me when I was roughly their age. It's a sentimental thing, but it just makes me so crazy happy. And maybe that's part of my problem, that like I'm willing to overlook these inconsistencies in timeline and technology just for the joy of having Star Trek.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. I mean, as I said, it's only the sort of nerd in me, the guy that the guy that sits outside of the filmmaker. So there's the filmmaker that understands why they change these things, and then there's the Star Trek nerd that wants to believe, oh, this could happen and this could all be connected and all that sort of shit. And from as I said, it's more of a, I think there's a few story points that could be problematic setting it when they've set it. But then again, it could be an opportunity as well, like you said, to sort of bridge some stuff. So we'll see what happens. But let me ask you, you're obviously a massive fan of, we know you're a massive fan of Enterprise, and you speak fondly of Next Gen and, all of that stuff. What is your thoughts then on the J.J. Abrams movies? How do you feel about those?
Yes. Well, I loved being able to see Star Trek in the theaters. Although I did not see the third one in theaters.
What?
Yeah, so the first one came out, and look, I'll say it. I went with friends of mine from the Star Trek BBS. A group of us all went together and we saw it. And we came out of that theater and we were so happy, and we were slapping each other on the back and going like, thank God, right? They did another Star Trek movie, and it was fantastic. And I ran out and bought the DVD right when it came out, and I kept watching it and watching it and watching it. And slowly I was like, hey, I don't like this. I was excited, but there's a lot of this that doesn't feel like Star Trek to me. There's a lot of this that just feels like a space battle, a Star War, if you will. And then the second one came out, and I was like, well, I'm going to go. I want to see what happens. And I felt like, oh, they're trying to get back to what makes Star Trek for me. But I don't think they're doing a very good job of it. And it didn't sit quite right. And so then I ended up not seeing the third one in theaters, but then I did watch it on DVD, and I thought like, oh, this is actually much closer to what I think Star Trek is. Mm-hmm. It is a great story arc for Chris Pine's Kirk, as he sort of learns about family and love and friendship. And so I have very mixed feelings about it, is the way to sum it up shortly. I think that J.J. Abrams was 100% auditioning for a Star Wars job with his first Star Trek movie.
Well, that worked out, didn't it?
It worked out great for him. And in the short term, it was a great movie. I think that if you watch that now, it does not hold up with Star Trek. It doesn't resonate the same way for me as I'm sorry, I'm gonna make no friends on this podcast, but it doesn't hold up for me as well as Undiscovered Country, or what's the really bad, not the really bad one,
the Final Frontier.
Final Frontier, yeah.
The one we
I
love.
would rather watch Final Frontier than Star Trek 2009. I would rather watch Insurrection.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I must admit though, sort of when it comes to ranking the films, I think Nemesis is like the worst Star Trek film out there.
Oh right, I forgot about Nemesis.
Yeah, that's
even though you get Janeway cameo in it, I did like that.
Yeah, but it's just a mess of a film. It's just a terrible
it is
film.
totally.
Yeah. Even like Insurgent and not Insurgent, Insurrection. Oh,
Insurrection.
I'd come up with a new Star Trek film, Insurgent. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, even Insurrection. It was enjoyable, and it's at least it had a story that was going along. It just seemed oh bloody hell, words escape me. It didn't seem to matter as much as say like First Contact did. Or Generations.
Well, like you guys said,
you
guys said in your podcast, right? Like those movies are like very long Star Trek TV episodes.
Yeah,
they don't have the pomp or the importance of the better movies, and I feel like Star Trek 2009 didn't have the meat or the soul of a Star Trek even TV show. It had all the, the flash and the bang, and it paid homage in the right places to Star Trek lore. But I mean, apart from, I'm sorry, I get too dorky, I think, because I was about to go like, well, they did have that theme where they were building the Enterprise in Iowa, and everyone knows that the Enterprise was built off of Mars. But
that's in the Prime timeline, not the Kelvin one. You see, that's what I mean. They that's what they did that was so clever in that is they actually, by having the split timeline, they made the fact that there are all those inconsistencies work. Because essentially with the timeline split, some things seem more advanced and some things they're behind on. For example, the Enterprise hadn't even launched yet at that point, whereas in the Prime timeline, the Enterprise is supposed to have already had 2 missions prior to where we're at now, with Pike and then with Captain April before that, and all this sort of thing. So that's what they did. That was I thought a genius stroke, which is what I think this show Discovery suffers from, is the fact that it looks like it should be in that continuity rather than prequeling the original series or being a couple of years after the events of The Cage. And again, that's being really dorky. I know that. I need to, and I understand why it looks different. I totally get it. But it's just one of those things that bothers the headcanon, if you like.
Well, then do think of it as the Calvin universe. I think it probably is. I think that's probably what the intention was. I think, as you've got so many producers and cooks and everything, probably somebody just went, oh no, it's connected to somebody went, it's connected to Kirk and Spock, but probably meant movie Kirk and Spock, not original series Kirk and Spock.
Actually, we might be getting the Kelvin timeline confused here, because doesn't it start before Kirk's birth?
It starts at 2233 when Nero's ship comes back from the post Next Gen and all that stuff. When Spock creates that wormhole and it comes back, that's where it shifts. So
2233.
Which is when Kirk's father dies on board the Kelvin. That's when it's changed. So up to this point now, there's about 22, 23 years of history different from what would have been. So the Cage wouldn't have happened because Pike would still be on Earth teaching at the academy, where he finds Kirk in the bar and all that stuff. Yeah. So that's why this to me feels like it would totally fit into that from both a design point of view, but also just from a a continuity point of view in general, whereas both the design and the story continuity doesn't seem to fit, where they just say, oh, well, this is before Kirk and the Enterprise, because technically the Enterprise is supposed to be out there with Spock on it, and Captain Pike as commander. And I'm saying this as somebody, I've got to admit, I sound like an absolute Star Trek nerd here, right? But I'm not an aficionado by any means. And what I mean by that is there is no Star Trek series, apart from possibly Enterprise, where I've seen every single episode. I have seen.
That's ridiculous, though.
Yeah,
why haven't you fixed that?
Well, you have. I know you went and sat down and watched everything for a summer, didn't you? A whole summer or something.
I watched,
which is amazing. But no, I mean, I'm an aficionado of the movies, all of the movies, and there are episodes of Star Trek that I have watched, multiple times through the whole history of Star Trek, from the original through Next Gen, Voyager, Enterprise, everything. But I'm saying these things bother me, and I'm not saying it as somebody that knows every single beat and character development of Star Trek. But, I understand the basic chronology, the basic timeline, and the sort of continuity. And Discovery does not seem to fit where it's supposed to. Although I take your point about the Klingon stuff, and I think that absolutely works, although they look wrong.
Different. Infinite diversity and infinite combination.
There you go. Yeah. It's all about Vulcan philosophy. Yeah.
It's all about Vulcan philosophy. I think, though, that the Discovery, we don't know if it's in the Kelvin timeline or not. Because
it's just that they're saying it's not. But
are they
true.
saying
we don't know. Well, apparently all the write-ups are saying it's not. Everything. If you look on like Wikipedia or whatever, and even on IMDb, which we know is always 100% correct, right?
Always.
It actually makes a point in the notes of saying this takes place in the prime timeline and not the rebooted Kelvin continuity. So
then that is weird.
And I think the reason behind it is, obviously, I know it's all owned by Paramount, but essentially, CBS have the TV side, and I guess Bad Robot or whatever have the film side. And I guess if there's going to be future films, they're worried about restricting themselves with stories in case they clash somewhere, I guess. But the complete opposite as to why they created the timeline in the Kelvin timeline in the first place, But it's I think the uniforms look cool. They're an evolution of the Enterprise uniforms, is the way I look at it, and I like them actually. They look good.
I thought they looked great. I think. I always like seeing a two-piece uniform, because that means the actors are more comfortable.
Right.
Yes.
The Next Gen.
Yes.
The Next Gen one piece.
The changes in season 3.
Yeah. So I was pleased to see that. I think the collar looks interesting. I think the subtle color changes between piping, or however you want to say it, the accents, right? Some are gold, some are silver.
Some are bronze. Yeah, bronze.
Yeah. I like it. I like all of the visuals. I think the visuals do pull off the Kelvin timeline, even though it's not in the Kelvin timeline.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? What are you hoping to see in this series? What do you think they're gonna pull out the bag?
I'm hoping to be surprised. I really am. What I'm hoping they don't do too much of, I'll be honest, is, okay, they've got Sarek in as the sort of connecting character between, what we know and what we don't. But, and I know you always have a problem with this, Simon. I hate anything that makes this big galaxy suddenly seem really small. I'm hoping that there's not going to be too many attempts to try and tie it in with the other stuff in terms of characters. I'm hoping
you're going to be disappointed.
Oh, am I? Okay, there's plans, are there? I've avoided anything that's to come. So
So, but if you haven't seen every episode, I don't know like how much it's going to affect you, but there was a character in the original series who reoccurred for, I think, 2 or 3 episodes, who was not a Starfleet member. He was like do you know Harry Mudd?
Oh, Harry Mudd. Yeah. Okay.
Rainn Wilson is playing Harry Mudd.
Oh, what, the guy from The Office?
Yes.
Is it the guy from The Office?
The U.S. office. Yeah.
The U.S. office, obviously. Yes. Okay. Yes. I don't know. I the Sarek thing is one thing, but I want this show to sort of live and breathe on its own and be its own Star Trek, and I don't really want there to be too many. Whereas I like continuity, it can also be. It can A, make the world seem very small, and B, particularly when you get different actors and everything, to me it even makes the continuity worse. So I don't actually. I hope they don't do that too much. Then if they've got him planned, fair enough. But
I think I saw on IMDb, again, source of all truth, that he's multiple episodes, and I had heard that he was coming back. Or Harry Mudd was coming back.
Right.
My hopes are that they stay away from the simple conflicts and get at the what makes Star Trek for me, which is sort of what I consider Roddenberry Star Trek is the quest to make humanity better.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
that is what I have always identified with, even as a kid. Those were the things that I loved, was that we were making ourselves better, and we were making the universe a better place. And so I hope that is one of the core fundaments of the series arc. Not just in terms of, we eradicated the threat. Isn't it better that now all the bad people are dead? Like, I hope that there's more than that. I hope that it is a reflection of the personal growth that humans are capable of, right? That sublimeness that is what humanity is at its best.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I agree. I want it to be about exploration and discovery, as the title suggests. And those things, and back to the sort of character crossover things. I mean, I have no problem with the fact that our lead character in this is a human woman who was raised in the Vulcan culture. I think that's great, but part of me wishes it was just another, Vulcan ambassador or whatever that she was raised by, and that it didn't have to be Sarek. It's like it's like that they had to go there, didn't they? It's like okay, fair enough, but
I would have loved if they'd played off of T'Pring or T'Pol, right? Some of the classic Vulcan religious leaders, I guess is the term I'd use.
Right. Actually, wouldn't that have been amazing if because T'Pol technically could still be alive as a Vulcan, right? Because of their longer age span or whatever. So wouldn't it have been cool if it had been her and they got Jolene Blaylock back? That would have been amazing.
and what's her name from the original series? T'Pring? Yeah, T'Pring, who is no, not T'Pring.
T'Pau. Do you mean
T'Pau?
Yeah.
T'Pau.
Okay.
Right? T'Pau, who is also in Enterprise, is like the Vulcan spiritual leader.
I forgot. Yeah, that was a Manny Koto thing, wasn't it? In the fourth season.
If they had instead of going Sarek, who already has a lot going for him, if they had used her, right, that character. I think that would have been way more interesting.
Yeah. It's it is what it is. But
it is what it is.
Yeah, that's. What about you, Simon? Have you got any hopes for this?
Well, I'm hoping, and I doubt they're going to do it, but I'm hoping that they're going to take a trip to the Dark Universe.
The Mirror Universe.
Yes. Okay.
I could not disagree.
Oh, okay. Well, I've always sort of been a fan of the Mirror Universe, and funny enough, one of my favorite episodes of Enterprise was when
Mirror Darkly.
Yeah.
Mirror Darkly.
Yeah.
One of my least favorites.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I found it quite fun seeing that the whole sort of bit from First Contact with Zephyr Cochrane, and then you just see them attacking the Vulcans instead of greeting them. So, okay. Well, I
have to agree. I have to agree with you, Simon. I know, Pete. I've heard your podcast about Enterprise, and I know that's not, I know that's not one of your favourites, but I have to say, in terms of a good fun romp, that Mirror Universe Enterprise episode or two-parter is a lot of fun, and it also acts as a kind of sort of sequel to the Tholian Web as well, and I like that.
It does. My problem with the Mirror Universe is like it is totally timeline based.
Yes.
Because the oh my gosh, it makes me so angry. But I have to take a deep breath. Deep Space Nine totally killed the Mirror Universe for me because they kept dipping back into it, and then every time they dipped back into it, I was like, wait a second, how does this timeline interact? Where does this make sense? They never would have done this. How do you say that? Why are there humans on this outpost? No.
Well, maybe Empress Hoshi, had a different view on it. I don't know.
I actually did like that part. Empress Hoshi was good. Anyway, we'll see. Oh, God. The only thing that I could think is why they wouldn't do it for this is because they are trying to tell one cohesive story, as opposed to episodic, bouncing around.
The one thing I hope they don't do is tribbles, because
me too.
Yeah, just because
I agree.
When it comes to people who aren't big fans of Star Trek, tribbles is that one thing that they go, oh yeah, the little fairy things. We all know that. I mean. Hence why they're used in the films, and if anybody outside of had never seen a Star Trek episode in their life, we're thinking, well, what's this little furry thing?
Yeah.
Well, don't get me that was the whole thing with the super blood.
Oh,
so
yes.
Don't even get me started.
That's the thing in the Calvin the Calvin timeline. Nobody can die now because they've got
that's true.
Yeah.
But, I hope they don't bring tribbles into this. We've had enough troubles with tribbles,
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
Although I worry that with Klingons being a main part of this, somebody in that writer's room is going to pitch like, no. And then we beam over some tribbles and we get all these shots of these big, scary Klingons not liking tribbles.
Oh, I hope not. I will not be happy. But I mean, part of me, oh God, it's like they've had to go back, there with Klingons, yet again. But it looks like they're going to use it as a, as a proper story point, and a gap in what we've had in the history. So that's fair enough. As I said, I just wish they'd thrown a couple of hairy Klingons in there for good measure, but there you go, they didn't.
No. Still time.
Yeah.
If they were going to really do it, they should throw in a smooth-faced Klingon, and
there you go,
right, like a TOS Klingon and a Worf type Klingon.
Yeah. Instead, we got a Into Darkness type Klingon because there was some similarities. I know it's not exactly the same, but there was definitely some similarities there. And I quite like the idea of them using the the Klingon language throughout and doing subtitles instead of the the usual sort of suspending your disbelief and believing that they're talking Klingon when they're all speaking in English, you know?
Yeah.
Again, they can do these things now.
They can. We're more open to subtitles, right?
Yeah.
As a viewing populace. I hope we find out more about that lady who had a computer for a head.
Well, yeah, actually, good. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that was something I was thinking about that I'd forgotten to bring up as well. Yeah, what was all that? There was like a sort of, was that supposed to be like a sort of precursor to artificial life, i.e. data type life that comes much later? Was that supposed to be like a really early robot or something?
No.
It looked like human hands.
Yeah.
You know what I noticed was that three people on the bridge had mechanical implants, is what it looked like. There was the one guy who had the band around his head, and then there was the guy with the blue face had like a bolt in the back of his neck, and then the computer head lady. It seemed like a really weird choice that they threw in there and then didn't go into any further.
It stems from the films again. It stems from the Kelvin timeline films, because they've had characters like that on the bridge. You know, they're just being thrown there without any rhyme or reason. There's no backstory to them. They're just there, and so it's just another race of aliens that just happen to be on the bridge. But
did they have a woman with a TV for a head? I don't remember that.
No, they had the guy with the 3 arms, who was a throwback to the animated series.
Yeah, I mean, there's been similar things where they've been augmented with some sort of technology, or
they say that's the future. That's going to happen. In our society. Already people are getting near field communication chips inserted in their wrists and stuff like that for payments and all those sort of weird things. So that's quite possible in 250 years time, I suppose. It's like, why not?
But I mean, but I just wanted to say, but I mean, from your point of view, you're sort of latching onto this sort of character, this sort of just a bit player who may never appear again in any other episode. It's like, oh wow, what's happening? Is this a race, or is this a human that's being augmented? But they're never going to go into it. It's just a alien to have on the bridge that's different from everything else.
Yeah, it's just accepted like everyone, which is what Star Trek's all about. So
I know, but but my point being is it's not that they're being accepted on the bridge. It's just that it's something cool to have, but there isn't a reason for it to be there.
Right. Yeah, I noticed they even had the red on that person's head screen thing. They had the Red Alert logo from the motion picture.
Yeah.
Which I thought, oh, nice. I like that. I always like those little design things.
Yeah, but that was stupid. Why would you have a red alert on somebody's face and not in the? I mean, what if you weren't on the bridge looking at that person? How the hell would you know it was red alert?
Yeah, there you go.
You gotta do a little communicator tour. It's like, hey, what's on your face right now?
yeah. Is it dinner time?
I could come up with all sorts of crude jokes related to that, but I'm not going to go there. What was I going to say? So obviously, we've got quite geeky, and some of our listeners may have tuned out already. Who knows? So I'm going to ask you then, Pete, as a Star Trek fan, and I think we can go there. The animated series, is that to you? Is that officially part of the Star Trek canon or not?
Yeah, to me it is. I mean, it was produced with Roddenberry's oversight, like other Star Trek. I know that, again, people don't like it because, it's not the Star Trek that I know. And I fully subscribe to the infinite diversity and infinite combinations, like I've said numerous times. And so if Gene Roddenberry signs off on it, then it's okay by me. And he produced it. It was part of it.
Hmm.
I consider a lot of the novelizations canon, right? If you got it produced under Star Trek, it's Star Trek. It might not be your Star Trek. And I say that right to the people listening who didn't like it. It might not be yours. I know for me, Deep Space Nine is not my Star Trek. It doesn't speak to me. It doesn't fill me with the joy that other Star Treks do. But I watched it. I don't know that I'll watch it again. I've watched the animated series. I don't know that I'll watch it again. But the stories that it told, I still have in my mind, and I can still recall. And the stories that they told still affect the stories of Star Trek and the timeline of Star Trek. I think the animated series was actually really cool because they were able to do things that you couldn't do in TV at that time.
Yeah,
right?
like have three-armed aliens. And
have a three-armed
like
alien on the bridge, right?
Yeah.
Which was a great depth to the storytelling, you know? They had a 50-foot Spock in one of the episodes, and like you couldn't do that convincingly on TV, but you could do it animated.
In animation.
In animation. You couldn't do it in the 60s. You could do it in animation.
I mean, I have to admit, again, it's like all of the series, it's one that I've seen some of, and some of them multiple times, but probably still not every episode of. But my view on the animated series was you had the original, you had Roddenberry's involvement, you had a lot of the writers of the original series' involvement, and you had the voice actors doing the voices to their likeness, right? So as far as I was concerned, that was the continuing of the 5-year mission that we didn't get in the live action ones because they cancelled it. So to me, I think of it as canon from that point of view. The thing that I think is quite spooky and spooky in a really sad way now is the only character that wasn't present in the animated series, to my knowledge anyway, was Chekhov. Yeah, and weirdly, when you see what's happened in real life now, if they do continue to make the Star Trek movies, apparently JJ's gone on record as saying, out of respect to Anton Yeltsin, they won't be recasting Chekhov as a character. So it's kind of odd, because does that mean that will continue on with another character in that place, like a three-armed alien or whatever? But it does seem kind of odd, that he was the character that was missing from the animated series. And life's weird like that sometimes, it's but I always enjoyed it.
I wouldn't agree with not recasting Chekhov, because I think Star Trek is bigger than one person, right? You recast Kirk, you recast, all of the original series actors when you redid it. You move between different Sareks, right? And I think it's okay to recast a character. And I think that it's a disservice to the story, and possibly even a disservice to what I can't remember his name now. That actor who died,
Anton Yeltsin. Yeah,
Anton Yeltsin, right? And it was a horrible actor. Great actor, and it wasn't anything like that. Right? He just got out of his car and his car rolled back on him. Right?
Very sad.
It was a freak accident, and I think that it doesn't service the story to cut out this character, and you, I think, dishonor his memory by not continuing the character. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, maybe they will. I don't know. I just thought I'd read somewhere, again, probably on IMDb, that JJ had said that they, because obviously he's continuing to produce these films, even though he's obviously Mr. Star Wars now. To
go back to the animated series, I think, have you seen that episode of Next Generation where the devil shows up to claim the planet as her own?
Oh, sure. Yes, I remember that episode.
right?
Yeah.
And then they find that anyway. The animated series did kind of a version on that where they went and found the Devil's Planet. And it is a better episode than that Star Trek Next Generation episode. It is an episode that I think of all the time in terms of morals and meanings. And it was an animated episode for a kids' TV show.
Wow,
right?
okay. Is the devil supposed to exist in Roddenberry's Star Trek universe? Because I thought religion was kind of not a thing. Or have I got that wrong?
Well, so religion is not much of a thing, but then, he had to put it in some of the original series episodes to appease the CBS overlords. But the devil in the animated series goes, I was just a guy, right? I'm just a being. I'm not human. But I was ascribed all of these things, and then stuff formed up around me. But this is who I am.
Okay, because I know Roddenberry didn't like, what does God need with a starship? But then nor did a lot of people, but there you go.
Yeah. Well,
Simon.
I would recommend watching it. It's all on Netflix. It's all on CBS All Access. If you're paying for it in the US, go watch it.
Fair enough. Simon, I've got to ask you, I mean, you've been quiet there, but for you, Deep Space Nine is your Star Trek, right?
Yes,
am I right? That's actually your favourite one.
Oh,
that's my favourite.
It's probably the one I've seen the least of, to be fair.
Right.
But
it's the one that I've out of the sort of Next Generation series of shows, I've seen the most. I've seen it 3 times all the way through.
All the way through?
All the way through, yeah. And for me, what I originally enjoyed about it was the fact that the crew didn't go off to another world. They were there, having to deal with all these sort of, all the politics of this world that they were, I guess in guardianship of, or, helping to get them to move into the Federation. They had the whole discovery of the wormhole, and then you also had the fact that they were on this space station that was alien to them, and wasn't in the best of health, and there was a lot of things left over from when the
Kardashians.
The Kardashian. Oh God, I fucking saying Kardashians. The Kardashians were there.
Wow, nearly.
They're both evil. But I was gonna.
One of my most popular tweets was 7 seasons in, and I can't tell these Kardashians apart. Talking about DS9, and everyone thought that I had misspelled Kardashians.
But yeah, I mean, and. I also like the fact for once we got to see a war take place in the Star Trek universe with the Dominion War, and
that's right. You had that whole Jem Hadar arc or whatever.
Yes,
is that right?
That's right. Yeah, with the founders and the Jem Hadar, and there was
Dominion War.
Yeah, I mean there was a bit of paranoia that came into the Star Trek universe that wasn't there before. The fact that anybody could be replaced and be a changeling, I mean, the fact that they did start doing the whole sort of thing, blood tests, where they would cut themselves and let the blood drip onto a table to show that they were human. So I always found it very interesting. And there was I was also a fan of Babylon 5 at the time, and I think just thinking about it now, I think definitely Babylon 5 for the first 4 series was probably a superior series to Deep Space Nine, but I just enjoyed the characters and the interactions and stuff, and the fact that it was in the Star Trek universe. But I mean, for me, Deep Space Nine was my Star Trek. That was when I was the height of my being I would say I was a Trekkie. When that series was on, that was sort of...
you can always be a Trekkie. You don't have to take yourself out.
Oh, no, I was like serious Trekkie. I mean, I was collecting all the figures and reading loads of books, and I actually bought most of Deep Space Nine on VHS, as well as a lot of Voyager on VHS. because that was the way to get it early without having to wait for it to come on TV.
Oh, because you were in the UK,
yeah.
You mean? Yes, yeah. We had.
You had to get
now we all get everything at the same time, but definitely growing up, I always find this when we're talking about films and where we were when they were out, and it never seems to always match up with when the films were released. But then I realised that in the UK, quite often we could get things a year or two later than they were originally aired in the US, and that was the norm. Back then, which seems, any millennials listening to this will be like, what? You didn't have it instantly? What's going on?
And then we had to wait a year for it to come out on VHS.
Exactly. Yeah. None of this 2-month stuff or whatever it is nowadays on average. But you'd have to wait a long time. You wouldn't get simultaneous releases of anything. So it was a different time.
I grew up in Asia, so I had the same problem.
Right. Okay. So fair enough.
Yeah, I moved to the US in 1995.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I was living out there at that point. So, but that's a whole nother story. Listen, I think we have probably. I know it's a massive subject, but I think we probably have for the little bit of discovery that we've been shown so far. We've probably thrashed it to death here. So
we have. We're actually longer than the 2 episodes combined.
Hey, there you go. There you go. What we always crave for on Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. There you have it. But really, really do appreciate you joining us from the US, Pete, to share your thoughts on this. And I think, everything you had to say essentially was very positive when it, I feared it might go the other way. I don't know, but just judging on some of the comments that I'd read on, as I said, on IMDb. But we always ask people if people want to see your work or there's anything that you want to talk about in terms of what's next for you. We want to give you the opportunity to do so. So where can people find you?
Thanks. I'm on Twitter at Spud_monkey on Twitter. It's not a great name, but it's mine. And that's really the only project I have coming out that I can talk about. I'm not often seen, but around and about on occasion. And I can't thank you enough for having me here to talk about my absolute favorite topic of all time.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, maybe when next March or whenever this show finishes, because I know there's a little gap and then it comes back again early next year. Maybe we can do a follow-up episode to this where this is about our initial reactions to Star Trek Discovery. Maybe we can do our end of season reactions and see if we still feel the same way or not. That could be quite interesting. So
I am
maybe
always
we'll do that.
happy. Always happy to talk about Star Trek. Anytime.
Excellent.
So, Keith, where can we find your work?
Okay, well, if you go onto YouTube and put in British Eyles, that's EYLES, as in my last name, you can see some films that I've made there. And if you put my name into IMDb, you can see other projects that I've worked on in the past.
And as always, you can find my work on independentrunnings.com. Also, I'm on IMDb too. So check out some of my work there. I still haven't got everything listed on there, which is surprising.
Oh God, me neither. Yeah. There's loads of stuff missing, but it gives you a overall flavour.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I'm on IMDb too. Pete, not Peter.
Yeah. Okay.
And as always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and all good podcasting websites. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Just search Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. Leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher. It all helps. And have I left anything else? I think that's it.
No, I don't think so.
I feel like there's something else.
Live long and prosper.
Peace and long life.
May the force be with you. Oh, so.
Nope. Oh, that's the next podcast. That's the next one.